All right, let's talk about something every business on the planet has to deal with: risk. It's this huge, overwhelming concept. Some risks, they're just small waves. You handle them, no problem. But others, they're like those massive, hidden icebergs that can sink the whole company. It can feel like a lot. But what if I told you there's a really simple way to cut through all that noise? Let's get into it.
So look at this. On one side, you've got something like leaving the petty cash box unlocked. Yeah, it's a risk, it's sloppy, and it's a headache for sure. But is it going to sink the whole company? Nah. Then, on the other side, you've got launching a huge new product. That's a bet the company kind of move, right? One of these is a problem for a quick meeting on a Tuesday morning. The other could literally decide the next decade for your business. The scale is just worlds apart.
Okay, so when you're staring down this massive range of risks, from those tiny slip-ups to stuff that could genuinely put you out of business, how in the world do you start to make sense of it? How did the really successful organizations figure out what's important, what to pour resources into, and what they can, safely put on the back burner?
Well, it turns out there's a really powerful way to think about this. A framework that just cuts right through all that confusion. And the best part? It splits this giant, messy world of risk into just two big buckets. And understanding this split, that is the absolute key to getting a handle on it all. First step, we have what's called strategic risk. Just think of this as the 30,000-foot view, the big picture. This isn't about the day-to-day grind, it's all about the fundamental direction of the company itself. It's about asking, are we even trying to achieve the right thing? Are we heading in the right direction? It's the risk that your entire game plan is just plain wrong. And then, on the other side of that coin, you've got operational risk. So if strategic risk is about the what you're aiming for, operational risk is all about the how. It's the risk of things going wrong inside the company. A breakdown with your people, your systems, your tech, basically any of the processes that are supposed to make the whole thing work. So let's zoom in a little on strategic risk. That ship analogy we started with, it's perfect here. Think of it like you're steering a massive ship across the ocean. Strategic risk is all about those huge questions. Are we even pointing this ship toward the right port? Have we planned for the major storms we know are on the horizon? And hey, are we even using the right maps to begin with? And this idea of strategic risk, man, it covers a ton of ground. We're talking about the risk that you launch a new product and nobody wants it. The risk that a recession suddenly hits and your sales dry up. Or a new technology comes along and makes you totally obsolete. Or maybe a competitor just flat out outplays you. These are those giant external forces and top-level choices that can make or break everything. So you might be wondering, whose job is this? Who's on the hook for this kind of stuff? Well, make no mistake about it. This responsibility falls squarely on the board of directors. They're the captains of the ship, and these are their decisions to own. The stakes really could not be higher. And this puts the board on a total razor's edge. They can make what's called a go error. That's when they greenlight something, pour millions into a new product, and it just flops. But what's just as dangerous is a stop error. That's when they fail to jump on a great opportunity and then have to sit back and watch a competitor run away with the market. See, both doing something and doing nothing can carry huge strategic risk. Okay, let's switch gears and go back to our ship. If strategic risk is about steering the whole vessel, then operational risk is all about making sure the engine room doesn't, explode. It's all about the internal machinery, making sure everything is running smoothly, day in, day out. Now, to make this crystal clear, let's look at a real-world and honestly pretty devastating example of what happens when operational risk goes wrong. The data breach at Dixon's Carphone. It's just a textbook case of internal systems failing and the consequences being absolutely massive. The scale of this operational failure was just staggering. We're talking about the personal data of 10 million customers being accessed. Just let that number sink in for a second. 10 million people. This wasn't some strategic misstep about which market to chase. No, this was a complete and utter breakdown of a core internal process, protecting customer data. And here's the really shocking part. This wasn't some smash-and-grab one-time attack. The malicious software was sitting there on over 5,000 cash registers, quietly stealing data for 9 months. That just screams a total failure of day-to-day security monitoring, a core operational job that was failing silently every single day. So when the regulators finally came in, believe me, they did not mince words. The official report from the UK's Information Commissioner's Office pointed the finger directly at poor security arrangements and inadequate steps to protect data. It's like the dictionary definition of an operational failure. The
The systems and the processes that were supposed to be there, that were supposed to work, they just didn't.
Okay, so we've got a pretty clear picture now, right? The difference between steering the ship and making sure the engine runs. So the next logical question is, how do you actually manage these two different things? Because here's the catch. You can't use the same set of tools for both.
And this is exactly where your approach has to fork in the road. For those huge, high-impact risks that hopefully don't happen often, like a major data breach, your focus has got to be all about prevention and having a bulletproof backup plan. But for those smaller, high-probability things, like minor defects or petty theft, the game shifts. It's all about catching them fast and fixing them on the spot. It is a completely different way of thinking.
And this really brings us to the most important takeaway of all. These two types of risk, they are not separate things. They are completely connected. You can have the most brilliant strategy in the world, a perfect destination for your ship, but it's totally useless if your engine room blows up because of bad operations. And hey, the reverse is true too. A perfectly tuned engine room doesn't do you any good if the captain is steering you straight for an iceberg.
And look, this way of thinking isn't just for boards of directors and CEOs. It applies to all of us. Whether it's in your own career, a project you're working on, or in your team at work, you face both of these risks every day. So I'll leave you with this question. What's the biggest risk you're managing right now? Is it a strategic one? Are you sure you're working on the right thing? Or is it operational? Are you worried you might mess up the execution? Because just figuring out which question you need to be asking, that's half the battle right there.